Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. We got some exciting stuff to talk about this week. I'm actually pretty excited to get into several of the topics that we have for this week, including No Man's Sky, but I also understand you've finished Empire of Silence, which we started talking about last week.
It's true. I thought I was a lot farther away than I actually was. Like, I finished a chapter that seemed like it was going to be a really final chapter, and I was like, man, there's still like 30 pages left. And then I realized there's like a big glossary at the end of it where they do this cool thing where they like contextualize everything from like the fake character that's transcribing this into Old English. And so he'll have stuff like, well, there's not really an Old English word for this, but I did this in this situation. And then there's also like a list of just like, here's all the places that were mentioned, and here's all the people that were mentioned, and they're like relationships to one another, which is really cool. But I was done like way earlier than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. I forgot to mention it last week as one of the sort of pros of having the actual physical copy of the book. You can like very easily flip to that last section at the end of the book if you're like, oh, who was this character again? And it just like has a little description of them, or like if he starts talking about some planet or some species and you're like, wait, what was this again? And then you just flip back there and there's like some info on it and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm good. But yeah, it would be confusing if you're flipping through the ebook pages and you're like, why are there still like 30 pages here at the end?
How are you liking the second book? How far are you? And I read the first chapter of the second book and then I had to go do something. You're
already into the second book. Wow. You're like, you're going to finish this second book way faster than me. You're on
maybe, I don't know,
a staggering pace by comparison to me. It took me a long time to finish that first book, but I am probably like 70 or 80 pages in to the first book. So like a good handful of chapters, but not super far. It's a longer book.
Still holding up?
Oh yeah. I am enjoying it so far. Very interesting. I think a little bit more action right out of the gate than the first book.
I will say I made my way through the first book, and then we had our podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'm at this place. And then after we finished, I started reading, and right after the duel, when he has to go to that like island or whatever, that's when I like it was like, man, I'm really locked in, and I just like couldn't stop reading because there was so much interesting stuff going on.
Yeah. I told you that it gets pretty interesting beyond like because we were talking about if they were to make it into like a movie or a TV show, what would they focus on? Because it kind of goes in a lot of different places. And I was like, I feel like the part where he's sort of a homeless person on this planet would be like a footnote, and they would move fairly quickly on to some of the other stuff going on. But
I'm interested to see, because also I was reading a thing. I read like the author did like an AMA on Reddit that I was just checking out while I was browsing around, and somebody asked like, I just read the first book and I really like it, but like it seems like he is going to live for like thousands of years, and all of his pals are like regular humans that are going to die in like 100 years. Have you taken that into account? And the guy was like, yeah, it's really interesting. It's been kind of a challenge because you make these memorable characters and you want to keep them along, but obviously they have like time considerations of like how old they are. But, stay tuned for possible solutions to that. And that's like a really unique thing compared to other books, I feel like, where you would have the same characters in each book. But I feel like he's going to, I don't know, I wonder if like, because there's 6 of these. So I wonder if eventually the cast of characters is just going to completely change.
Yeah. And so not to spoil things, but like that second book, that first chapter, he's like waking up, right? And it's like been 50 years. So he's like waking up out of like cryo sleep or whatever.
But he's only been awake for like 12 years.
Yeah, so time is going to be like progressing in different ways than like it's not going to just continue on from where the last book left off in terms of like the progression of time. Like there might be jumps in time from.
Yeah, that is wild to think about because it took him like he was adrift in the first book. Spoilers, I guess, for everything if you're interested in these books. But
Yeah.
he was adrift for like 35 years, and then he spent like, I don't know, 5 years on Imish
We're doing
or
a
whatever.
bad job of like explaining the plot of these. We're just sort of talking about our inside knowledge from having read the first book, but
And then he is adrift for like another, or not adrift, but he's like doing stuff for another 50 years. So like everybody that was on his first planet, like his brother is like super old now.
yeah.
And I don't know if he's ever going to come back.
Do is like have some of those characters he wants to keep around, like be in cryosleep and wake up later. So I mean, it's still a chance that some of them will stick around, but yeah, I think a little bit that first book was sort of doing a thing that George R.R. Martin did with characters in Game of Thrones, where he would humble a character pretty in a rough way. That's why what I think that whole section of him being like a homeless person on that planet, hanging out with that one character that ended up dying. I think that was him being like, okay, you've had this like great background and you're like this very privileged person, but now you've like spent years as basically a homeless person on this random planet because what your plans and hopes have been dashed pretty badly, and now you're trying to figure out where to go from here. And I feel like that's something that's sort of an interesting way to build a character. And so yeah, I thought that was seemingly inspired by Game of Thrones a little bit. And there's like we're texting a little bit, and there seems to be a lot of different ingredients thrown into the pot with this, because I think there's a little bit of Dune there. And you were talking about another book that you thought reminded you of
there's another book that's written in a very similar style called The Name of the Wind, where it's like more it does sort of like time jumps, whereas this one is always his writing. I keep wanting to say No Man's Sky. And The Name of the Wind, it starts out in current times and is like told in third person, and then at some point that guy starts telling his story, and then that's like within the narrative of the book. So those a majority of the chapters are him telling his story in the first person, like recounting stuff very similar to Empire of Silence, where he is like calling forward stuff like, I'll meet this person later, and you've probably heard that I met this person at this particular point. Told in a very similar style, and also very like beautiful prose, like this has, like very flowery language and just like wonderful descriptions of things. So there's some parallels to be made with that, but it's a very different setting.
Yeah, I keep thinking I should be like writing down some notes whenever he does that, when he like sort of breaks the fourth wall a little bit and is like, I am writing this down as like my own history and my own story. And occasionally there's like these sort of framing device moments where he like sort of leaps out of the story he's telling to be like, to sort of reflect from like a different time period on like how that was going. Because I feel like there are clues in there as to like where the story's going, and I almost need to like jot them down so that I can remember when we do eventually get to some of those parts that he's referring to. Like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that. But
it has made me want to do like space stuff. So like I was like listening to just like an hour-long ambient being on the Citadel of Mass Effect type of thing, YouTube. And it also had made me want to play No Man's Sky, which is our first news item.
Yeah, I did that something similar, not listening to Mass Effect, but a game I have not played but did listen to as I was reading that book, the Stellaris soundtrack. Have you listened to that at all?
No, I haven't checked that out.
It was like a random recommendation on YouTube Music, and so I was listening to that while I was reading Empire of Silence. I was like, actually, this works pretty well. It was pretty good.
Write that down and check it out.
It's not really my type of game, so I don't think I will play it, but the soundtrack's pretty good. So anyway, yes, No Man's Sky Worlds Part 1 is the big sort of update that just rolled out for No Man's Sky, and it is a big one. It's crazy. How long has this game been out? Like 8 to 10 years, somewhere in that
A
range?
crazy long time. And what they did, so they're making that Light No Fire, or Light No Fires, is it plural?
I think it's just Light No Fire. Yeah.
They are building that. That's their new thing that supposedly takes place on one world. And it looks really cool. I'm very excited for it. You can be like a rabbit and you can ride on like a big bird. But they're building that right now, and they're building these systems and these new technologies in order to make that game possible. And they were like, let's like pull everything back. Let's use this new technology that's helping us create this new game and put it into No Man's Sky. And so they've done that, and they're calling it Worlds Update Part 1, and it's a complete universe refresh. Like there's different water shaders, there's a much more planet diversity. And they've also added a new expedition, that is more combat focused, which, as I understand it, is like the first combat focused expedition. Is that right?
As far as I know, it seems like they're a little bit inspired by Helldivers with this one, because you seem to be like going after bugs and you're like shooting like this giant, I don't know, queen bug of some sort. But I don't think the expedition is out yet. Typically, they will launch like a big update, and then like maybe a week later they'll be like, okay, here's the expedition. Now you can go play this as well. But yeah, I really like the expeditions. They're like a really good way if you've been out of the game for a little while, if you want to jump in and sort of start a new character. You can play through the expedition and it will sort of like give you a bunch of rewards and set you up for like a new save that gives you like a good base to like start from. So I'm excited to actually jump in and try this out once the expedition goes live. But there's definitely a lot to check out for sure.
I wanted your take on this since you're an expert. So I tried to click on the expedition and it wasn't available yet. So there were two ways to play. There's a couple of different ways to play. There's normal. I think it said there was creative. And then I think there was one that's called like streamlined, where there's like less systems involved, but it's still technically a normal difficulty. And then there's survival. So I started just a normal one. Was that what you would recommend? It seems like there are a lot of systems. Like I haven't even fully repaired my spaceship yet because I'm doing stuff on the first planet.
I don't know if that other one where it like cuts down the number of systems is new or not. I don't remember that being available previously, but I also have not played the game in quite a while. But I think I've only played normal. I know the other one, the creative one, basically strips out the need to go around and collect resources, and you can basically you just have the freedom to, go somewhere and start building stuff to your heart's content. If you want to just like go find a paradise planet somewhere and build like a giant settlement there, you can basically do that. And yeah, I don't know about the other. I know survival, or the survival one, has been around for a while, and that's supposed to make it more difficult, a little bit more of a survival situation. But yeah, that other one interested me because I think I would prefer to have a little bit fewer systems.
Yeah, once I get through all of the tutorials, because I'm still very much in the tutorial phase of this game. Once I get through all that, I might, depending on like if the expedition's available or not yet, I might try out that streamlined one just to see how much easier it is. Because it is a little bit of like, they throw a lot at you right away, where it's just like, here's your ship, you need to craft this thing, but this thing is made of these other things, but it takes a refinery to make these things. So first repair the refinery. And so you have to do all this stuff, and it's pretty straightforward, but also is just like a lot to keep in my head at one time, right? Like at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do think it's good since you're just jumping in kind of maybe for the first time. I don't know if you played this previously.
No, this is the first time.
So yeah, it is good that you're jumping in to a normal save to kind of get sort of the getting in on the ground level of like learning how the systems work and how to do different things before you jump into the expedition. But I do think you'll enjoy having a little bit more of a sort of guided, almost like, quest objective to objective sort of a thing to once you get into that expedition. But And then, yeah, at the end of it, it's like, hey, do you want to convert this save to like a normal save so you can keep going with this character? And that probably will be something you'll do because it's...
Yeah, and I didn't get to pick what my like suit and stuff looked like, which I thought I would be a part of the beginning. But does that come later?
Yeah, you can eventually do that. You probably haven't made it to the anomaly yet.
No, I haven't even taken off of the first island or the first planet yet.
Yeah, I know they have like revamped space stations as well, so I'm excited to see that once I get in there. But I know like you should. I don't know if it's like tied to a quest. I'm having a hard time remembering how things went, but eventually you'll go to the anomaly, which is this like big old space station type of thing, and there's like a bunch of different vendors you can talk to there, and you can like really change out what your spacesuit looks like there. You might be able to do that at a regular space station as well, but I don't remember.
Embarrassingly, I had to look up a guide on YouTube to figure out how to change to first-person camera because it was not super intuitive to me.
What did you have to do?
You have to like press down on the D-pad or maybe up, and that brings up like a little menu where you can do like your emotes and like summon vehicles and stuff. And then there's a gear that's like utility. And then from there is a change camera perspective. But I thought it was going to just be a button.
Oh, yeah. Like in like Elder Scrolls or something.
Or anything else. I mean, even like GTA 5 or like, Red Dead Redemption. It's usually just like the 3 lines button on Xbox.
I actually haven't. Was first person an option in Red Dead Redemption when I played it? I don't know.
I think they added it eventually. They added it at the same time they added it to GTA 5. Yeah, I watched a really funny video one time of a guy doing like a bunch of crimes in first person. That was very funny. I don't remember who made that. It was some compilation I saw on YouTube. But it made it way funnier for it to be in first person because you can really see the NPC models just like freaking out if you tie them up.
I think I typically played No Man's Sky in third person when I was getting really into it a couple of years ago, and we were talking about it on the podcast. I'm pretty sure I just always played it in third person. I definitely prefer like the ship, like flying around in space in third person.
For sure.
But you can do that in either first or third person. But yeah, like the high definition water and like the different skyboxes, or like I don't know, what do they call this? There's like all kinds of different updates to like even wildlife and like wind simulation, and I think visually it's going to be crazy to look at. Plus they've added like combat mechs and all kinds of stuff, which, I mean, this is as a free update. It's crazy just how crazy much this changes No Man's Sky. So I wonder if they will like really die down on updates for No Man's Sky once Light No Fire comes out. If they will sort of be,
I don't know. I mean, they're a small team.
Yeah. It makes me wonder if they'll be like, okay, we've more or less done what we want to do with No Man's Sky. It's more or less a feature complete game at this point. You can keep playing it, but we're not going to drop these massive updates the way we've been doing over the last like 10 years. So instead, we're moving on to Light No Fire, and that's what we're going to support from here on out. I don't know if that'll be the case, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I really want to know what the gameplay of Light No Fire is, because right now it seems like the gameplay of No Man's Sky is like basically building, and also there's the mining, and there's some like light combat. But I wonder if, like, surely you have a sword in Light No Fire, I would think. I'm so curious to see what the gameplay loop of that is like, because I don't think it's going to be mining resources.
Yeah, I don't know. The trailer that they showed for that game doesn't really give you a good idea of what the gameplay
Yeah, they just sort of walk around.
Yeah. Speaking of which, as I'm scrolling down through this No Man's Sky thing, buildings will walk around.
Yeah.
There's one of the things they added are living buildings, which you can find on different planets, and they will actually lay eggs as well. It's just insane to me. I feel like you were already able to like happen across some pretty crazy sites in the game previously, but now you just never know what you're going to see when you land on a planet at this point. But yeah, I'm excited to jump back in. I have re-downloaded it, but I have not jumped back in just yet. So I'm excited to try that out. Speaking of updates, though, there is a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover with Fortnite that I saw. Crazy that there's still like Pirates of the Caribbean is like there hasn't been a new movie in that in a long time, but it's still getting all these like video game updates or add-ons. Because there was one for what is that pirate game on Xbox?
Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves, yes. There's a Pirates of the Caribbean add-on to Sea of Thieves, and now Jack Sparrow and what's her name that everybody knows, Elizabeth Swann is and Davy Jones. They're all showing up in, I guess, Fortnite. Which
they added a cool item that I saw, which was a ship in a bottle, where you get it and then you like throw it down, and all of a sudden you're riding on a huge ghost ship that can just like go through buildings and basically demolishes anything in its path.
Huh. I mean, these add-ons always confuse me because I guess I just don't know the gameplay of Fortnite well enough to be like, is this just like a character skin, or like what is the implications of adding Pirates of the Caribbean stuff to Fortnite? Typically
when they do an event like this, they do the character skins, but they also do some tie-in items that also roll in. I think they had a pretty bad season last season because it was all car focused. They did like a Mad Max thing, but basically what that did is like it changed the meta in a bad way where like you basically had to be in a car in the last circle, or you would just get demolished because cars have guns on them now, and it gives you like way more armor. And so I think people were not into that because basically every match devolved into just everyone driving around. So I don't know if they've fully gotten rid of that when there was just with this transition to Pirates of the Caribbean, but I liked all the items I saw. There was a couple other items that were interesting to me. They also added some ships that you can go explore as like points of interest. But yeah, that ship in a bottle item seems cool.
Evidently, this also goes for the Lego Fortnite mode.
Oh, really? That makes sense, I guess.
Because some of the pictures and the link we have in our show notes shows like the Lego versions of the characters that are being added. So it has like the Fortnite versions of the characters and then like the Lego Fortnite version. So I've been curious about that Lego Fortnite version, but still have not bothered to download and try it out. But and then did you ever watch the Halo series that was on Paramount?
No, it seemed bad to me. So yeah. I also never want to pay for Paramount Plus. Yeah. So that was like the main reason I didn't watch it.
Two barriers to entry there. I didn't want to subscribe to Paramount Plus, but also the show I just heard was bad, so I didn't want to watch it for that reason as well.
I've never really known the lore of Halo. I have done some deep dives on like Wikipedia to see like, you know, who's Master Chief and whatever. But I know the books were very, very popular and people were really into the world that they created, but I've never really dipped my toes into that, so I don't really care.
Yeah, I just remember seeing people complain that they had sort of messed with the lore in the TV show in a way that people didn't like, so I just avoided it. Either way, the news that we're talking about is that Paramount has canceled the Halo series. They did 2 seasons, and now it's gone. So yeah, if you did enjoy watching that show, it's gone now. And you won't get to see any more of it. I don't know where it ended off, if there was some sort of cliffhanger sort of situation that they will now not get to resolve, but they're done.
I think it's possible to do a good version of this, but I don't think they had the right team involved. So maybe this is a thing where, I mean, I feel like a thing that they are constantly remaking that they don't need to is Watchmen. There's been like so many iterations of just that same story. And so that kind of gives me hope that there will be another iteration of Halo down the road where they're just like, let's start from zero again and do it right this time. And that one I might check out, but I think it's good that this one is coming to a close because it was not really, I don't think it really meshed with what the audience wanted.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be well liked from Halo fans, so it doesn't surprise me that they canceled it. Actually, a little bit surprises me that it got a second season, because that first season was like, I only heard bad things about it.
Critically panned.
Yeah. Let's talk Splitgate 2.
We played a little bit of Splitgate together, I think, when it first came out. It was a big... it came out of nowhere. I think it was free. And then Halo Infinite came out, and people were sort of just like, oh no, let's play this instead.
Yeah,
and so
because it was very Halo-like in its combat.
Yeah. Instead of a big hammer, you had like a baseball bat, and the main thing was you shot portals around, and it was pretty fun. They had a very powerful pistol, similar to what Halo has. But then, Halo Infinite came out, and that was sort of the multiplayer experience everyone wanted to do. And that was also, I guess at least the multiplayer of it was free. But they have come out with a new cinematic trailer and it's completely cinematic. There's no gameplay for Splitgate 2, which is coming out at some point. I forget if they have there's not an exact release date, but they may have said like coming out in March, or not, like a second half, or coming 2025, it says. So, did you watch the cinematic trailer? It doesn't really teach you anything about it seems like maybe there's a new gun that can split in half, and you can dual wield, kind of, which is interesting. And there's going to be a lot more armament, like items you can use, but pretty out of nowhere, I would say. Are you interested in this?
No, I mean, we played a little bit of the first one just out of curiosity and because people were talking about it at the time. And it seemed like a solid enough shooter, but it was sort of duplicating features of other shooters that are more popular. And so it was just like, I'm sure that they needed to make a second one because, one, they wanted to make improvements, but also they needed to get the name out there in a new way to get people to dive back in. If this had just been an update to the first Splitgate, I'm sure it would have a little bit fallen on deaf ears outside of whatever core audience they've got right now. But yeah, I don't know. Interesting that there's another sort of free-to-play shooter out there, but I don't think I will be playing this.
Yeah, I don't know. I just I had some fun initially. I think when we jumped on, it was right when it first became a thing. And so it had a large player base, and that made it so that it was kind of easy to play because there were people that were bad that were playing, and I'm also bad, so I was able to get some kills. But then towards the end of it, it had other people had dropped off or gone to other things, and so there was just like a dedicated fan base, and that made it very difficult for me to play because I'm not super good at video games. So I wonder if this will be... I mean, it's going to be free to play, so I wonder if it'll be a thing where everybody jumps on for like a weekend and then it goes away, but I don't know. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Factorio, which is a great game that I have not played much of. I played once for like 10 hours straight because I was like very into it, and then I sort of like never played it again. But they are having a huge 2.0 update in October, and they're also adding an expansion called Space Age. Now, typically in Factorio, the whole point of the game was that you land on a planet, you have to manage resources and create a factory in order to, your goal is to get off the planet, to build a rocket and to escape. And so this adds a whole second game to that, basically, where now you're in space, and what do you do when you're in this like space station area? And so I think it's gonna be really cool, and I think it's gonna have people jump back in a ton. There's also, this is a game that's been modded a crazy amount, where modders have added their own expansions and own like factory things. And I haven't really dipped my toes into the modding space of this, but they said that what did they say? Previously, comparing the size of Space Age to the original game without taking more than 80 hours. So it'll take like 80 hours to finish with this new stuff. And it's still just going to be $35. So I wanted to shout this out because I think I am going to check this out. I'll have to see if my group of friends wants to play, because I think it is also one of those games where it's better. We more played Satisfactory, which is kind of like the 3D version of this. This is more of a 2D game if you haven't seen it. Which also Satisfactory is coming up with their 1.0 pretty soon, or they already did it. But Factorio, a great little game that if you are into just like streamlining efficiency type stuff, factory building type games, is like the gold standard, basically. It's very, very fun. So I wanted to shout it out.
Well, before we get into what we've been playing and watching, the only other news piece I threw in here was that Overwatch 2 has a new hero that's available to play, but I guess it's only for like a limited a time before Season 12 launches, which I don't actually know when that is. I don't know. I don't follow Overwatch super closely, but every now and then I'll get back into it and play more. I guess Season 12 begins on August 20th, but for now you can try out the new character, which is Juno, who is a healer, and it seems like she sort of has like a bunch of features from other characters all combined into one. So like her weapon, sort of like Anna or however you say her name, where she like just fires her weapon, and if it hits a teammate, it heals. If it hits an enemy, it does damage. So you don't have to like think about, okay, I need to hit this button to heal and this button to do damage, or I need to like swap weapons out or anything like that. No, you just like run around and shoot and you're good. But she also can like sort of glide around similar to Mercy. And she has this thing where she'll throw out like a bubble that if you run through it, it makes you move faster. So she has like some movement mechanics as well. And then she also has this thing where, sort of similar to, not McCree, Cassidy, where when you do your ult, although this is not her ult, this is just like a regular ability she has, you like lock on to nearby enemies and allies, and she'll like fire off these little, I guess they're sort of missiles, but they like either do damage or healing to whoever they hit.
Oh, interesting.
So she's got like some cool abilities. She seems like sort of like combining a bunch of elements from other heroes into one character in an interesting way. But that's the new character. I have not checked it out yet, but I did jump in last night because I was playing Concord, which we'll get to in a minute. But it made me want to re-download and jump back into Overwatch a little bit. And so I did, and I noticed they had like a new, I think maybe they have like their summer seasonal stuff going on right now. And so
they always have stuff for the Olympics, don't they? And the Olympics are happening or about to start happening.
I feel like they're about to start happening. And so like Lucio Ball is active right now. And they had another one. I don't know how new this is, but it was like 3v3 volleyball stuff, which I had not played before. So I tried that out, and I was really bad at it. I feel like Lucio Ball I understand and I'm decent at, but like this volleyball thing I could not seem to get the handle of very well. But so I tried that out, and then I did a little bit of like quick play just to get back into it a little bit. But a fun game every now and then, once in a while. But I don't know. I feel like depending on when it is, both Overwatch and Apex, like people love it or they hate it, and I don't know what sort of phase we're in right now with Overwatch at the moment. But I feel like that same thing could probably be said of Concord, but right now people are in the hate it phase
of Concord.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What's bad about it? You were pretty positive on it last week, weren't you?
I was positive on it from a gameplay perspective, and I still am, but I don't think it's going to do well. I think it's, like I said last week, I think it's going to maybe have its initial spike the way all these games do, but it will fall off fairly quickly. I think it, like, gameplay wise, it's pretty like solid. And I think they did do some like tuning between the betas, like last week's beta and this weekend's open beta, because I think the last week I said the kill time seemed a little too long. I think they brought that down a little bit. It felt a little bit better in this beta. Still like longer than say like Call of Duty or Battlefield, but like not necessarily to the point where you feel like you're using multiple clips to take out one enemy. But Yeah, I don't know. I think the characters, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I think the characters are not as interesting or well designed as they are in like Apex or
Not
Overwatch.
as distinct.
Yeah. And some of that is because I mean it's a different game obviously and it's doing different things, but like it's more of a Call of Duty style shooter that just happens to have sort of cartoony Overwatch like heroes, but like the Overwatch heroes have way more interesting like abilities and weapons where like if you're playing Mercy in Overwatch and then you switch over to Soldier 76, like the play styles are wildly different and you more or less have the same play style with the characters in Concord, except one of them will be a tank, one of them will be a healer, and one of them will be like a DPS character. So it's a little bit different, but you still more or less have like an assault rifle that you're running around with. So that feels kind of similar. I did try out some of the other characters. So this weekend's beta, they added a third game mode type that you could play. So previously there was like team deathmatch and kill confirmed, and they had like the more objective based modes where no respawns happen. So if you die, you're just out. And then this week they added basically control from Destiny or domination from Call of Duty, where you have like 3 points on the map, points A, B, and C, and you're just like your team is trying to control at least 2 of them longer than the other team does, and that's how you gain points and win. And I actually had fun with it last night as I was playing, because there were a few times where you would get steamrolled, and there were a few times we did the steamrolling, and then there were several matches where it was like a pretty tight match, and those were like the really fun ones. So it like a mix of good and bad in there. I guess that's to be expected, but the different characters I played as, I tried out, there's this one like DPS character who is like in a spacesuit, and she can like hover, and then with instead of aiming down sights when you hit the left trigger, if you press that, she has this like rocket launcher that like locks onto enemies, and you can fire it off and it does a bunch of damage. And she also has this like ground pound, so if she's hovering, you can hit the button and she'll like zoom down and do like sort of a ground pound type of a thing. That character I thought was really fun. And then there was another healer that I tried, different from the healer I played last week, where he'll like throw down a bubble. It was weird to have like the ability to throw down a bubble, which seems more of like a tanky defense character, kind of like Winston, but then to also have like a healing ability where he kind of has like Soldier 76 thing where he'll throw down a little circle basically on the ground, and then you can walk into it and it'll do healing over time for you. So that character was pretty good to have as well on a team. And then I also tried out one of the tanks, and it was there's this big character with like very heavily armored, and she's got like a Gatling gun basically, but she can also pull out like a little Reinhardt shield. That character was interesting as well, and I could definitely see where you would want to balance your team around having at least one of those tanks and like a healer or two and some DPS characters. But so it was fun to try out some different characters, and I think they're fun to play. I don't think they're as varied and interesting as they are in some of the characters from like Overwatch and even Apex, just from a design perspective. But I don't think it's bad. I just think people do not want to like it. I think it's whenever it's a little bit like the Apple and Android type of situation where those have established themselves. And if somebody else, even somebody as big as Microsoft comes along, people are going to be like, no, we don't want this. We already have these. You're just trying to copy. And so I feel like it's very difficult to sort of enter this space and not have people just immediately reject you. And I think part of the problem is that you have to pay $40 for this. And it's not, it should be a free to play game.
Yeah.
Also, I have found that the unlocks are not consistent or not really happening much for me. I don't know if that's because it's the beta and they're holding the cards close to their chest until the actual game launches, but I'm like not getting very many unlocks.
What would you be unlocking? Like character skins?
Yeah, so like different armor, sort of, it would be all visual, but like you could be getting different armor sets for your characters. You could be getting different sort of cosmetics for your weapons and things like that. And they do have like the place where you would go equip them, but you can't see like ahead to see, okay, am I unlocking this other thing? Or in Overwatch and Apex, you're like earning this like in-game currency that you're able to then go in and spend on specific things that you want cosmetic wise. But you also, like, as you level up, you get these chests basically that give you random stuff. In this game, there doesn't seem to be any path forward that I'm aware of to getting any of the cosmetics. I don't even know what they are. Like, I can't browse through them and be like, oh, that looks cool, let me get that. Like, none of that exists, at least as of now in the beta. And that might be different once the full game launches, but I have not seen any of that. And another thing people have complained about is that it feels slow. It feels more sluggish than like Overwatch and Apex. Definitely comparatively to Apex, it feels slower, but I don't know if I agree that it feels slower than Overwatch necessarily. I think that the big difference is every character in Overwatch has a movement ability of some sort, whereas these characters don't. So if you play a tank and you're sort of slow and lumbering and you have like a lot of health, you're not going to move very quickly. And so I get where people would say that about those characters, whereas the tanks in Overwatch, like Winston has this giant jump and Diva can like zoom forward and fly around, and you know, every character in that game has some sort of movement ability, and you don't really have that in Concord. You can do like a dodge, but you don't really have. You can sprint or you can dodge, but you don't have.
Yeah,
like,
you have that
crazy,
like hunter roll, right, where it goes third person for a second.
Yeah, so every character I think can do that, except maybe the tanks. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, you don't have like the crazy movement abilities where like a tank has the ability to sort of close the distance between them and like a DPS character that's like shooting them from a distance. So you just kind of have to back off if you're getting shot from like a sniper somewhere. So that kind of sucks, but I don't know. I think like gameplay wise, it feels good to play. I just think people are, I don't know, not into it. So I don't anticipate it doing super well, is what I'm saying. But yeah, anything you've been playing, watching?
Still playing Luigi's Mansion 2, still liking it. The levels get really long once you get to like the second or third houses. That's been fun. But yeah, I dipped into No Man's Sky, and I'm on the first planet. I don't know if this is always the case. Like, do they always drop you in like a very hazardous first planet, so you have to learn about like repairing your suit and stuff?
That's a good question. I don't remember that being the case, but maybe.
I dropped in and I was doing stuff, and I noticed like my environmental safety was like kind of going down. I was like, okay, I should like repair my suit or whatever. And then I got an alert that was like firestorm active, and I just saw this wall of fire coming at me. And then it hit me, and then I was like really going down, and so I had to like get a bunch of sodium or something, and just like constantly refill my suit while I was running around trying to do stuff. And then I found a structure that I could get in, and I just sort of like waited out the storm. But I don't know if I got unlucky.
You can also just sit in your ship, and it'll like replenish your stuff for a little bit, and yeah, you can sort of avoid the storm that way. And then once it passes, you can jump back out again.
That's good to know. I still am very much in the tutorial phase of things, but I am excited to leave my first planet, and I assume there's going to be even more tutorial when I get into the space. But yeah, I'm liking it. I'm excited to play more of it. I did resub to Game Pass for $1 for 14 days, and then it will be $20 going forward. So I might, depending on how much I'm into this, I'm either gonna resub for a couple months or like unsubscribe and maybe just like buy this, because it's only like, I think it's $20 right now on Xbox because it's like super discounted because of this update. So I could have just done that, but there were a couple other games on Game Pass I wanted to check out. So we'll see what happens. And then I also watched Jaws.
Been a while since you've seen Jaws?
I think I maybe only saw it when I was a kid on like TNT or something, like with commercials. So I've never seen the full like unedited version of it.
Really? Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it was good. It's there were some parts where I thought maybe the part where they were on the boat was like just a little bit too long. I thought they could have like made that more concise. But other than that, it was a wonderful movie. The first blockbuster movie, they say.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They do say that for sure. I mean, Spielberg definitely, I don't know. He was sort of a pioneer in the big blockbuster.
I don't think it's my first. I mean, it's not my favorite Spielberg for sure. Yeah. But what would you say your favorite Spielberg is?
I mean, probably one of the Indiana Jones movies. I really like Last Crusade, probably the best.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, Jurassic Park is out there. You did that?
Yeah, I might say Jurassic Park. A lot of good moments in that one.
Yeah, I mean, he's got like a ton of them to choose from. So,
War Horse.
I don't think I ever watched War Horse.
No, neither did I.
That one's your favorite? You're going with War Horse?
I love that one, and I love Ready Player One.
Ooh, I forgot he did Ready Player One. That CGI fest. It was not great. But
what about you? Have you been watching or playing anything?
I mean, other than Concord, I do think I will jump into No Man's Sky this weekend. And I did, in addition to reading Howling Dark, which is the second book in the Sun Eater series, I have also been reading a James Bond book. I was flipping through my books around because we were talking about how we have been getting into reading more lately. And so I was like, what else do I have that I haven't read yet? And I was looking around. I do have some, like a handful of the old Ian Fleming books. And one of them was Moonraker, which I own those books. I haven't read. I think the only one I've read is Casino Royale, which I think I read back when that first Daniel Craig movie came out. And I thought they did a pretty good job of like sticking to the novel, but like doing whatever they want to sort of update the like new stuff for it. But yeah, this one's interesting because it's like the bad guy is sort of this like well-liked sort of rich entrepreneur guy who's like made a fortune from like, you know, rare metals, and now he's using that to sort of build this like missile defense system to launch into orbit that will like keep England and like Europe sort of safe. And the M is like, yeah, but I discovered he cheats at cards, so we need to like figure this out, because one, if that ends up being like, I think right now the suspicion, because I'm only like a few chapters in, I think the suspicion is he's going to get found out to be this like notorious card cheater, and that will sort of spoil his image in the public, and that will make him like fall off of doing this missile defense system, and we can't compromise that because we need it to keep us safe. And so they're trying to like, I guess they're gonna like privately have Bond play with him and like figure out how he cheats and like what's going on there, and so that they can be like, wild. hey, we figured it out, you stop this. But yeah, I don't know where it goes from there, but that's how the first few chapters have been. And it's like, there's definitely movie version of Bond, and there's definitely the book version of Bond, and it's like two different things. So I don't remember the movie that well. I just know Jaws is in it. Don't they go to space at one point?
I actually have never seen Moonraker.
Oh, really? I don't think that's one of the more well-liked Roger Moore ones, but I don't know. It seemed interesting to me, so I'm gonna maybe keep reading it as I go.
Crazy that it also has to do with cards.
Yeah, I think maybe that was a more common element of Ian Fleming's Bond books than like they kind of went away from that in the movies. But
how do they make that thrilling and like with the written word? Like when you were reading Casino Royale, were the card game parts interesting?
I mean, I read that years ago, so I don't recall. But so far they haven't in Moonraker, I'll say that much. But I'm excited to get beyond that point to the rest of what's going on. But yeah, he almost seems a little bit Sherlock Holmesy, where he's like reading the room and like looking around and sort of deducing things a little bit. So that's, I feel like, an element you don't really get as much of in the old movies, but yeah. More books reading is happening. So read more books is our parting wisdom again. Or do you have an official parting wisdom?
Well, I was going to tell a story, actually. It's not really part of parting wisdom. It could be. But I was at a place for work where there was no power because there was a big storm. And I was driving around looking for a place to have lunch. And there was a Checkers that was attached to a gas station. And I think that's probably why it had power, because it was attached to a gas station. Have you ever been to a Checkers before?
No.
I drove through, and it looked like a regular drive-through. It didn't have like the McDonald's like big LED screen or whatever, or LCD screen. But it was just like a regular old-looking drive-through. But out of the speaker, an AI took my order.
Oh, really?
And that's my first time I've ever experienced that. I pulled up and she was like, "Hello, what would you like?" And I was like, "I want a number 9." And then she like sat for like 5 seconds. And then she was like, "Do you want it large?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she sat for another 5 seconds and was like, "Would you want a drink?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want this drink." And she was like, "Do you want that to be large?" And I was like, "Yeah." So it took like longer for sure than it would have taken with a human. But it was just a robot that I talked to. And then she was just like, "This is your total." And then I drove up and a human gave me my food. And it's the first time that's happened to me, but it was very weird.
It's like calling support and having to talk to the robot on the other hand. Would you like to speak to an agent? Hit this button.
I'm so curious how much I could have talked to it. Like if I was like, "How's your day going?" I wonder if it would have been like, "My day's going great. I work at Checkers."
You should try that.
I don't know. Maybe I will. But yeah, it's not really a parting wisdom. It was just like a weird thing that happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's good and bad. One, because I feel like a lot of these places are having trouble hiring people, but also on the other hand, it's like taking jobs away from somebody who could have been there on the other end taking your order.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. Good and bad, I guess, but that's where we're going. AI is gonna be the next big thing. Got to get used to talking to the AI. Yeah, definitely go try it again, but like try to be extra chatty with it and just see how it goes.
Activate self-destruct.
That would be funny. I wonder how it would respond if you said that.
I'm very curious to see. I probably won't be down there for a good amount of time, but
it'd probably be like, "I'm sorry, I didn't catch that."
Maybe that's what they would say. It would be like in Westworld when people would like, when the robots would see something they weren't supposed to see, they would just be like,
"Doesn't look like anything to me."
Yeah. What did you say?
Doesn't sound like anything to me.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But that's all.
Well, on that note, go ahead and follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter at Starside Cafe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.